The riots in LA that took place in April 1992 started when a black man, Rodney King, was beaten by a group of white policemen for speeding. A witness, George Holliday, videotaped part of the beating. The 4 policemen were charged with assault. However, on April 29th, the 3 of them were acquitted of all charges. This enraged the citizens of LA who were concerned about police treatment of minorities, which caused them to start the riots. The riots first started in South Los Angeles and spread out to other areas of LA within 6 days. There was looting, assault, arson, and murder during these riots, all resulting in 53 deaths, thousands of injuries, more than 10,000 arrests, and over $1 billion worth of damage. After 6 days of this, the rioters finally quit after the military got involved. After the riots stopped, significant changes were made in the Los Angeles Police Department, including a retrial for the white policeman charged of beating Rodney King, analyzing excessive force, resignation of the police chief, and increasing minority officers in the police department.
What do you know about the LA riots?
It was in April 26, 1992, I think it was. I don't know.
It's in LA.
I don't think we were a very good thing. I think a lot of people got hurt.
Rodney King got beaten, really bad by 4 police officers.
Riots that happened in 1992 in Los Angeles.
Police brutality on them, like in the streets and stuff. And then they went to court and they weren't guilty.
A guy named Rodney King was beaten. He was beat by LAPD.
You know what happened in 1992? White policemen beat up Rodney King for no apparent reason, and when they went to court, the policemen were proven innocent.
I don't think what they did was right, but I can understand why they did it.
What?
Alright, what do you know about the LA riots?
Well, I think I was like 10 at the time, but I remember, what, is that a shock to you? Like, I was alive when the LA riots were around. Well, I think that it's still influential. Like, I think that there's still the same sentiments that are, present as we've seen, police brutality has continued. This idea of being selective of who they're pulling over and who they're addressing and how they're treating them. So I think to address it, the police department has tried to come up with ways, like the cameras that they're using now on them in order to, I guess, lower the attempts that police have in some of these situations. But then there's also the flip side of it where they're saying like they're not going to allow that footage to be public, or who gets to see this footage, what happens to it, can somebody that's being picked up by the police request to see that footage, who will have access to that. So I think that's their attempt to address this, but I think that it's still very much present.
I know that the LA riots happened in 1992 and that they were sparked by the beating of Rodney King. The police were very unfair and very brutal to all the people who participated in the riots, and that they were started mostly because of police brutality, although that wasn't all of it.
So the LA riots happened when I was a freshman in college. And I actually remember it being a really big topic of conversation around the campus.
There was a lot of media coverage of it and a lot of unfair portrayal of what was happening.
For me, the most important effect of it is the visceral effect, like the visual effect of having seen LA in flames, and the brutality, and the brutality brought on by the police, and the looting done in the neighborhoods. Just the violence of it was something that in our current time, in that time, in the 90s, we hadn't seen physically happen. Everything I had seen like that was historical film, right? It was like the Civil Rights era or, Vietnam protests. It was not something current.
And there was definitely police brutality in Los Angeles, and the LAPD has been and still is under scrutiny.
You know, there's that old saying, if it looks like a duck and walks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And so I would say that, that what I can see looks excessive, right? The stories of the people on the ground reported that it was violent, and so it's hard for me to defend it. So yes, I believe that their actions were violent, and I believe that they were excessive.
I think there are other ways that the people could have gone about having this protest rather than destroying property. I don't think they would have gotten as much attention had they not.
Since now, I would not say that more violence would have helped the cause. Once you have the British National Guard in, that already shows that your cause or the method with which you are expressing that cause is not being heard or respected or acknowledged as a real rebellion.
I think they would have gotten as much attention had they not. Had they just sat in a demonstration like Occupy Wall Street.
I have a hard time with conversations around like what's justified and what isn't, because I would so desperately want to be able to warp into someone's shoes at that moment. You know, it's like that great old philosophical question I remember my philosophy professor in college asking, which is, you know, what is the greater crime? The man who kills someone who is about to kill his children, right? Or the man who walks into a jewelry store and just because of the desire for material goods steals, you know, robs. You know, one could argue that there are moralistic arguments for each, like one is justified, what isn't. And yet you could also then flip it and say murder is worse than stealing some diamonds, right? So I don't know. I have trouble with like why people did what they did. And it's hard for me to stand back and want to judge it since I wasn't there. And I don't know what it was like to be there and to have that long history of oppression.
From hearing what happened, I'm inclined to believe that they were unfair in a lot of their treatments of the people that they tried to restrain.
Was it justified? I would say the anger was justified. I would argue that the method of expressing that anger, especially over the course of 3 days, because of the type of violence and the type of property damage and the type of looting and so forth that was occurring at the time, you sort of, I would argue that you lose some of the integrity of the message, right? So I would argue that more violence would have helped the situation, would have helped the cause. I think a more organized rebellion would have.
Comparatively, not that much, actually.
Sure. I mean, I think with each incident you get more and more jaded with it as a society. I think there have definitely been more cases of really blatant police brutality against people of color since then, to be sure, in the last 20 plus years. I mentioned Oscar Grant, which is just 4 years ago. Who was just shot by police with him. He was laid down on the ground and a cop pulled out a gun and shot him in the back. And there was a couple of days of riots over that. Again, anger, not organization. And that police chief had to resign as well.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I look at how many music videos, right? Like I was struck the other day, I was watching some video by, I forgot who it was, but there were images from the LA riots, like the Reginald Denny beating, right? Or the, you know, all these things that happened. And I thought, you know, God, it's become this sort of like, this monolith, this argument point, right? This illustration of when poverty gets out of balance with power and power corrupts and, you know, and race gets thrown into it. Not just thrown into it, race was central to what happened. And you end up with this hot pot that's brewing and brewing, and then somebody lights the right spark. Then it's an image we can't let go of.
A statement was made, I would say, about what happened and about the problems with the LAPD and about the racial discrimination that goes on in America.
Say hello to my little friend.
Oh, you're getting in their trunk. guess I put it in her. Yeah, I didn't.
What do you know about the LA riots?
So, are you kidding me?
Are you serious? She's told you no!
Listen, Bobo.
What?
You're like the most spinniest chairs.
Aren't these more spinny? Because they actually spin, in a circle.
She's not gonna be able.
What do you know about the LA riots?
It's recording.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the event that transitioned to the LA riots?
Wait, stop. What the hell kind of question is that?